Hey everyone, this is from Eluveitie and Illumishade, and you are watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 232 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Fabienne from Eluveitie and also Illumishade, and probably a plethora of other bands. So, how are you doing today?
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm doing good. Thank you. It's been 1 week since our album release. It's still very busy, but it's good to be busy, I would say. Yeah, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Lovely afternoon here in Georgia in the USA. Just had some lunch, and I'm ready for an interview you.
Oh, perfect. How is the weather in Georgia at the moment? It's
It's
warm?
doing pretty good. It's about in the mid 50s Fahrenheit. How is it over in Switzerland?
Oh man, okay, the Fahrenheit problem. I have no idea.
Yeah.
We have like 5 degrees, if that makes sense for you.
Yeah, so it's probably cold.
Yeah, it's rather cold, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of like the form it is, I want to talk about like your musical history as well as I want to talk about the new Illumishade album, but take it back to young Fat Being. So kind of growing up in Switzerland, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to be a vocalist?
Oh, actually, my influences from like childhood and teenage years are not really coming from the metal. I was more into big vocalists like Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion with the big ballads. This, I think, made me want to become a singer in the first place. When I hear these big ballads from the 80s, 90s, I'm done. As well as also a big influence of mine from my teenage years is musical theater songs. Also there, the ballads, the tough songs to sing somehow. Later on, I also discovered folk, uh, more Swedish folk because I was studying for 1 year in Sweden. So there I came more into touch with that. And then, of course, once Eluveitie came into my life, of course, it opened a whole new world for me. And in a weird way, it felt like I'm coming home in that sense, like in the metal. Although I was didn't grow up with it, now it just feels like this is the place that I want to be and I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I want to talk about is Tivinia. Yeah, I believe that was that like your first band or was there any bands before that?
Before Helveti, um, there was no band before, no.
Yeah. But tell me about Tivinia because I don't think nobody ever talks about that.
Twinna, yes, this was founded by Laura Fella from oh, can I say it? Oh my goodness, my brain. Faun. And yeah, so they asked me to join, and I joined, and then yeah, I was a guest singer in the end because things got too much. Things got too much together with Illumishade coming into making and so on. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I
Mhm.
guess going into next is Eluveitie. So how'd you get to join the band? Because I know you joined 2017.
Yes, so pretty much they had quite a lineup change, like half a year prior. And then the new guitarist that joined, Jonas, he recommended me. And for me, it was like, yeah, of course I can send in something. I mean, it's always good to get feedback from such a band and from Kriegel, but I would have never thought that I would get in to this band. I mean, I did not have any um, experience at all in touring. I I mean, I played sometimes at school on concerts, but it's not the same. Like it's not like when you have a show and you perform and everything. It's different. So I didn't have any experience also in studios, not that much really. But somehow he believed in me, and yeah, here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but tell me about, I believe the first record you did was Evocation to Pantheon. So tell me about like that. What was like the thought process going into making that, being that was like your first record with Eluveitie?
Mm. Well, I have to say I was really, really nervous because for me it was the first time to go into a big studio to record, and then of course also in Gaulish, in this ancient Celtic language. It's also a challenge on top of it. But I don't know, it was a beautiful, beautiful way to record. I absolutely loved it. I felt very comfortable with Tommy Vetterli. He's from Coroner. We recorded it with him. He has a wonderful studio here in Switzerland, and he was working with him for many years already. I really felt comfortable, and it was super cool to get all the guys know better, because I mean I just joined like 4 months before that, before entering the studio or something like that. So it was rather fresh in that sense, but it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so that album sounds like different compared to like the previous albums. Like it's just like a very acousticy and also folky, but it's also really kind of like a catchy vibe to it. So I think that's like they're pretty much different compared to like the previous Eluveitie albums.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was Evocation 1, now we did Evocation 2, but it's like a special acoustic thing. It's of course, then we continued with Atechnatos, which was the proper metal album again. Yeah,
Yeah, and I loved
absolutely.
that album. I thought that was probably like the best Eluveitie album to date, especially with like being like your second record with the band. I remember the first time I ever saw Eluveitie was on that album cycle. You did like that tour with the Corpaclani in 2019. That was like of my first time seeing you all, and and I've been like a fan of y'all since. And it was great to see you all then.
Yeah, also cool. Yeah, I remember this tour. It was wild. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know no notice like lately the last thing I know Elvidi has done is like those singles like Adus and Exile of the Gods, which came out in like 22. So what is like the status with the new Elvidi album? Is there like a new album in the works, or like those singles are just kind of like standalone?
Mm. I cannot say too much, but let's say this is the calm before the storm, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, and I'm looking forward to that because I think Elvidi hasn't made a bad album yet. They're like very rare for a band to still make consistent good music.
Yeah, they are. They're really, really good musicians involved, and I'm excited for the new stuff, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. But then kind of switching topics, going into Illumishade, how did this project come to be? Because I know you formed in tw the band in 2019.
Hmm. Um, I think we were all looking for like a band with a just for a creative output where we can shape something from the beginning. We can make all the decisions. We can be creative, and it's like a black, yeah, right. It's a like a white canvas that you can just color the way you want it. And I think we all were longing for that. We met at school, actually at the music university, and yeah, it just felt needed to kind of have this where you're there from the scratch and starting something. And yeah, I think this is the essence of the band, that we just embrace all the ideas that come. If somebody wants to do a power metal track, let's do it. Or if we want to have a Swiss German piano ballad, let's do it. Stuff like that. So I really love that we're that free in that sense.
Right. And then tell me about making like the first Illumishade album, Ecliptic Wake of Shadows. Obviously was released in 2020 during the whole certain virus that shall not be named. How did that sort of like affect sort of like the dynamic and sort of like the recording process, like, or was that done before the pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Mm, I have to say, a lot of these tracks were written as well on tour because it was such a busy year with Eluveitie. So I remember, for example, when we were in China, like before going on stage, like backstage, I had this little MIDI piano and was writing stuff, or when we were in the hotel and so on. So we what we both have in both have in common, these both let's say the process of the songwriting, is that we both times went to the mountains for like a week, 10 days, just to really dive into it. I think it really helps when you're not distracted with everything that is around you all the time, and you just really dedicate like 1 week and just go to the mountains and write and work on the band. So we did that 2 times now already, and it was always very rewarding. Yeah, and otherwise, mm, we don't really write like together in that sense. Like, it's more like, for example, I come up with an idea, I send it to Jonas. If he likes it, he hears something, he does something, he sends it back to me, then maybe I hear something again, and so on. It's more like a ping pong effect, where everybody works separately, but we still work together, but not at the same time. So it's nice if you can meet up in the same room to discuss, but it's okay if, for example, maybe during these Corona times when we didn't meet that much, it was not the big change in that sense.
Right. And do you think it's easier to like write alone versus like writing with like a bunch of other people?
Mm. I mean, yes, I don't like writing with somebody like at the same time. I just no, then I shut down. I don't know, I can't, because then I'm shy. I don't want to show my ideas because I don't know what this other person would think. So I better just am alone with me and piano and I record and work out like a skeleton of a song, or if it's just a chorus melody, or if it's a verse and a chorus, whatever, or the whole song in the best case. And then I show it, and then we take it from there. And I think it's important. For example, I have a open mind when I send it to Jonas. I'm like, do you like it? Just change whatever you want, because I trust him. And then he, for example, can screw the pre-chorus and just does something on his own there, and come up with a bridge that wasn't there yet, stuff like that. And I really like it that we all shape the song then in that sense
Yeah.
together, although separately.
Yeah. And of course now we have the new album, Another Side of You, which is out now through Napalm Records. So how was like the writing and recording process for this album this time?
Mhm, mhm. Mm, pretty much a little bit the same. We maybe met up a little bit more like in Zurich, because we all live in Zurich or around Zurich. So we had these meetups in person more than for the first album, because we wrote most of it after like the Corona restrictions. But pretty much it stayed the same, I have to say, in working flow. As I said, that we come up separately with stuff, then we come together, get a feedback round, and go separate ways again and come back together. I love that. I really love that. I think the one big difference was that we wrote these songs now on the album, like you can say, like between like in 2 years maybe, and the other album was written in like half a year. So this I think is the biggest difference in the end, just at the time span. Yeah.
Yeah, and did you want to continue in the same vein as Ecliptic Wake of Shadows, or did you want to try something new with this album?
I think we didn't think too much. We just we actually, the first few songs that we wrote after this first album, we wrote without having a vision in mind of a full-length album. We just wrote because we wanted to write some music. And two of these songs happened to actually be on the actual album. So it feels more like a collection in that sense, where it's like songs on their own coming together, forming one thing, but it's not like a concept album like we did on the first record. It was not planned. It was just coming together like this. It felt the most natural, and no idea what we will do for the third one. I personally love concept albums, so maybe, but if it doesn't feel right, then maybe not.
Right. All right. I guessing in a way you kind of like, no pun intended, find another side of you.
There you fucking go. Oh.
But did you feel like pressure at all to little ecliptic? Because usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. Did you feel like pressure at all?
I think also there, I personally didn't think too much. I mean, it doesn't, or at least for me, it doesn't help to have this pressure for pushing the creativity and writing songs. No, so I didn't even think about it too much. Of course, in the end, you're like, oh, how will people receive it? And of course, after the first album, I was like, well, that's it. What else can we say and write and do? I said everything. But of course, after some time, it comes and the ideas flow, and yeah, I think we just did it
Yeah.
without thinking.
Yeah. Is there any like cool memories of of when you were recording the album?
Mm. I think for me, the most special time in the studio was when I recorded the Swiss German ballad Verliebt, because not only it's the first time that I was singing Swiss German in a studio, because I sometimes sing the Call of the Mountains in Swiss German with Eluveitie, but I never recorded in my mother tongue. So that, of course, felt special. Also, it was the very last song that I recorded in the studio after all the songs. So, and especially because it was a one take. So I sang the song 4 times through from the beginning until the end, and we just took the second last take. So it was very special in that sense to know that I cannot fuck it up because we will not cut it.
And what are you for you? And what was like sort of like the biggest challenge in making another side of you?
Mm. The biggest challenge, I think maybe staying structured with everything somehow, not having a mess with the logic sessions and with the files and stuff. More like an organization aspect, I think. Otherwise, writing wise, maybe for me, Riptide was, I think, the most challenging one, to write the melody to an already existing musical track, because I'm not used to that too much. So I have a hard time putting a melody on something that already exists fully. Like it's just I'm more used now with Illumishade to that it kind of comes together with the harmonies, and now it was already created and I had to put a melody on top, and I tried so hard and sometimes I was really frustrated, but I think the end result turned out good.
Yeah, yeah, and like every song sounds different. Like Riptide sounds different than Cloud Reader. That sounds different from Here We Are. So it feels like every song sort of like brings like a different style. So it's fair to say like you and Jonas and everybody sort of like brings like their own like influence into Illumishade.
Yes, exactly. That was definitely one of the things we wanted to bring, all the influences into the album from all the other members. For example, Cyclone uh, came from Miriam's idea and her influence, and then Joe took over, and so on and so forth. So also the lyrics are very different now because a big part of the lyrics is written by Yannick, our bass player. So yeah, he's a very talented lyricist. So, and he writes in a different style than how we wrote on the first album when I was writing together with two people outside the band. So
Yeah.
sounds definitely different.
Yeah, and lyrically, what did you wanted to try do differently than what you have done that you haven't done on Ecliptic?
I would say the topics are very different because we had on the first album this concept story in mind, and these songs were playing in the fantasy world, in this world that we created. And for this album, we left this a little bit on the side, and just it was written about topics that happen in everyday life, ups and downs. It's very grounded, down to earth, very much about this reality here, another fantasy world that we made up. So in that sense, it's yeah, I don't like saying it's more personal because it's just more personal in a different way. It's both albums were personal for me. I can relate being in a fantasy world. I think that's the thing to achieve as a singer, this is my opinion, that you can always make this song your own, and you always get one with the lyrics and the melody and the emotions of that song. So for me, it doesn't matter too much if it's now something that I really lived for in this life, or if I just can really like get myself to any situation and any topic. So this is my challenge that I love about singing. Yeah.
Right, right. And when it comes to making lyrics, you have to like put yourself in a certain mind frame in order to come up with lyrics, or just come like naturally and organically.
Yeah, sometimes I guess the harmonies and the melody, they kind of, also usually, or not usually, always the lyrics in Illumishade are last. So they need to fit the melody, the rhythm. So can be challenging. But I guess that the topic is defined by the mood of the skeleton of the song that we have. First of all, and sometimes like when I jam around with the piano and I sing random English words or Swedish or whatever. For example, it was with Rise like that, and on the first album, I just knew there it needs to be rise, and I rise, and then we built the whole lyrics of the song about rise. So sometimes these intuitive words come out that I'm like, okay, I don't care what will be there and there and there, but here I want that, and that will be the topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know you also mentioned you also sing in Swiss German. Does like singing in like your native tongue sort of like make sort of like the lyrics like personal to you in a way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, it's very different. I think also the sound of the voice changes because Swiss German has this and vowels. It's soft hard at the same time. It's just different than in English, and I feel like also my tone also changed. It's also very interesting, and of course, when it's your native language, there is a different feel to it, and I don't know. I like singing in different languages, be it English or another language or my mother tongue. I just like to experiment and get a new challenge done. So it was cool to do it for the first time in Swiss German.
And, and yeah, and I definitely think it definitely has like a different kind of like vibe with the songs too.
Yeah, I guess especially if you don't understand. I don't know how it feels when you actually don't understand the lyrics. Maybe it's a bit weird, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but of course this new album, Another Side of You, is also first album on Napalm Records. So how did Napalm Records find Illumishade, and how is it like working with them?
Mhm. Yeah, they contacted us like in spring last year or something like that, and we started talking. And yeah, I think we reached a point where it was like mm, where we were open to partner up with somebody, because there's so much more to it when you have a band than just writing music, right? I mean, there's so many other aspects that come along with it, and it's just great to have some support in these different aspects of it. And yeah, they know what they do, so we're happy to that they have our backs now, kind of.
Yeah. And in comparison to playing with Illumishade and Eluveitie, how different of a mind frame is it depending on either band you're playing with? Is there like a similar kind of like mind frame, or do you try to like keep like both those projects kind of like separate?
Mm. I mean, on stage, for example, it's very different. It's on stage, it's like I am with Eluveitie, I dive into this Celtic world, and with Illumishade, it's a very different vibe on stage. So I like it that I have kind of both in that sense. And so far, it also didn't interfere really, like playing wise, like with festivals or whatever. We really get it out of the way of each other really well so far. I think we just will rely on a good communication between the two bands just to make both work.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of like in also with playing live, because I know you played with a variety of different bands, because I know with Eluveitie I saw you with the Corpaclani, which is kind of like also folk metal, but then I saw you last year on a tour with Seven Spires and Onion Gathering, which are kind of like in the melodic death
Yes.
metal genre. Do you ever notice like a different kind of like reaction with the crowd depending on the different tours that you're on? And I know you're going to be on this tour with the Illumishade coming up with Vision of Atlantis, which are kind of like more power metal. So do you ever notice like a different like crowds depending on which tour you're on?
Mhm. Yes, but I think the biggest difference that I feel is the different countries. Let's say maybe not even depending that much on the tour, because so far all the tours that I've been on were great with great bands, so it was always good in that sense, right? But of course, if you play in the US or if you play in Switzerland, makes a huge difference. So I think this is like the bigger difference that I feel. Okay, we go now to North America, and I know that these shows will be incredible, because I know that like the North, like Canadian and Americans, they're so enthusiastic about this music, and they appreciate it when European bands come over and they travel for hours and stuff. So just mostly looking forward to that for sure. Aye, aye, aye.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like you have like a sound that could appeal to like every band. I feel like you're not just like a folk metal band. You feel like you could appeal to like any genre.
Thank you, thank you. That's good. That's good. I like
Yeah. Yeah, I
it.
mean I mean you could tour with anybody. You could tour with Nickelback and everybody would still love you.
Ah, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So kind of like in the end to wrap things up, what's next for Illumishade and of course with Eluveitie? Have you got any more tours coming up? I know you like with Illumishade you got that tour coming up with Corpaclani and Vision of Atlantis. So what's next for both of your bands if you're allowed to promote?
With Eluveitie, I cannot say too much, but things are in the making. It's definitely something to look forward to in the near future coming, for sure. And with Illumishade, it's just playing, playing, playing. We will have also European tour now in fall. We have some cool festivals with Eluveitie as well. We will play festivals this year. Yeah, thinking about the third album with Illumishade a little bit. So yeah, it's just busy times ahead. Looking forward to both things with Eluveitie and Illumishade, what will come. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Fabienne, for this conversation. It was great to finally have both Illumishade and Eluveitie on my show finally. There's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out?
Well, yeah, thank you so much for watching this interview, and maybe would be great to see you guys maybe in the North American tour somewhere in April or May. Yay.
Yeah. So everybody, Fabienne from Illumishade and Eluveitie, see you next time.